I think it's lovely if a film can create a lot of dialogue and conversation and a lot of thoughts and reflection. So, which I feel like a film like Lipstick did do that. Like, I had a major problem with a film like Ranjana, which I felt really glorified stalking, without having enough of a critical comment on that. That is not like love, that's like obsession. See, I don't look at films as a tool for learning and teaching, etc. All I wanted is for people to feel like for those 2 hours, they just got to know these four women a little bit. Yeah. So, in the 1970s, when all those films used rape literally like a tool for titillation.
Yeah, yeah.
And every time the hero had to avenge that rape, and how they shot it, and how like they use that term izzat lutli, and how like that concept of honor. So I think like those films are going on perpetuating that thought, and the woman who got raped never survived. As
Yeah.
though, like a person who's been raped doesn't deserve to live.
Yeah,
So
मौत से
what?
भी बदतर हो गई. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I loved your movie. The whole world has loved your movie, Lipstick Under My Burqa. What was the genesis of this idea? I read in one of your interviews, what you said was that externally, you didn't go through a lot of situations that the women in your film went through, although internally you did. So what motivated you to write these kinds of characters, and how did you identify with them through the writing process?
I feel like internally I did feel like there are a lot of things that keep holding me back. And I was kind of like always dealing with that feeling that I don't feel fully free. And somehow I feel like, there are some sort of internal chains. And I did want to kind of explore that feeling. And I think these characters just kind of emerged in my head. And of course, they emerged as people who really did have physical sort of obstacles to living their lives the way they sort of wanted to. So it was like almost like I think what I was feeling internally, these characters felt, were actually going through like a more external process of feeling like their wings are clipped, or like they're not really able to sort of fly. I really do feel like all the four characters are really like an extension of me. And every time like I'm often asked like, okay, who's your favorite character, which one do you, who do you identify with the most? I really feel for me they're all one, and they're all actually like some way like they're really reflections of me. So I think it was very organic. It always like the four kind of emerged in my head together along with the title, and that was really the genesis of the film.
Yeah. One word, the most commonly word used with this film has been feminism. And feminism is a word it's a very important word, but sometimes it's very loosely thrown around or often misconstrued. What is feminism to you?
I think feminism for me is the belief and the understanding that men and women are equal, and they should have equal access to opportunities, and they should have equal rights. For me, it's as basic as that. And I really do have a problem with people who say, especially with women, I feel, who are like, oh no, I mean, I don't want to be identified as feminist, or like, I'm not a feminist really. Because I feel like, how can a woman actually disassociate herself from the movement that has ensured that a woman is educated, that she has the right to vote, that she's not stuck in the kitchen only cooking and raising children? So I just feel like we are living off the fruits of the feminist movement across the world. Anyone worth their salt should be very clear that they are feminist, because if you're saying you're not feminist, what you're really saying is you feel that opportunity should not be equal. You feel that men should be treated at a higher pedestal than women. So I think I'm like very, very clear about it.
But do you feel, this film, of course, addresses patriarchy. So do you feel that an extension of the audience is women, that it's not just men? An extension of people who need to learn from this film are women as well?
See, I don't look at films as a tool for learning and teaching, etc. I mean, I feel I made this film because this was a story that emerged in my head. These were the characters that emerged,
Yeah.
in my thoughts. And I felt compelled to tell their story. So to write it and figure out a way of mounting this film and making this film. For me, I feel like as long as people can watch a film, identify with the characters in some way, empathize with them, enjoy their journey, laugh with them, cry with them. I feel they have lived a little of what those characters live.
Sure.
Then I think my job as a filmmaker is done. And what people like sort of take back and how much they reflect upon it, really, one doesn't know and one can't sort of say. And I definitely feel that I never made this film with any intention of preaching or teaching or any such thing. I made this film because I wanted to tell the story of these four women, and all I wanted is for people to feel like for those 2 hours, they just got to know these four women a little bit. Yeah. So I don't, and I feel like as a filmmaker, if you're honest, I feel your own politics and how you see the world gets reflected in your work if you're making a film with some certain amount of conviction and honesty.
You once said, and of course, we all know Lipstick Under My Burqa went through a major struggle to get a release, the kind of release that it got. And you once said that the fact that the film is now getting a release is not just a celebration for you, it's a celebration for women all across India. So talking about women all across India, of course, the critical response of the film has been phenomenal. It's been tremendous. Talking about all the women in India, the 95% who don't come from the upper strata of society or who live in the interiors of the country, do you feel that the film has reached out to them, and do you feel that it's made an impact? What has been your experience with that?
This film is about very regular middle class women. So I feel some of them, like maybe in the tier 2 cities, will probably have watched it. But I feel a lot of women without so much privilege have probably not seen it. And that's
Sure.
because our theatrical system is such that these kind of films like Lipstick, release on fewer screens and fewer theaters, and actually have a much more concentrated release in the metros where people are likely to go for these kind of films. And in the way out areas, first of all, there are hardly any theaters. Those theaters play a very, they tend to play very different kind of films. And women don't go on their own to these theaters mostly. So it's like one doesn't really know how to reach them, is
Sure.
what I'm getting at. That
Sure.
though one would love to, and in fact, I was just having this conversation with another filmmaker who's not yet released her film, and she really wants her film to, reach, reach people who may not be just people like us. So I was just telling her that it's really hard because one doesn't know how to actually. It's very, very difficult. I feel like the more mainstream films, maybe like this Total Dhamal has released, it probably will have a far wider sort of reach, and that's where, people will see it. But in terms of really reaching rural audiences, one can forget about. Yeah, and anyway, it's not a rural story. So I feel it doesn't even have that kind of like a connect. But for me, I'm happy that women in, Indore and Jaipur and Lucknow and those kind of people, cities, women who are maybe also like not that privileged could watch it. And I think that basic thing, I think a little bit of it was there.
Yeah. We talk about CSR and corporate social responsibility all the time. What level of responsibility do you think filmmakers in an industry like Bollywood hold today towards social change? Somebody who's made a film about something so important socially, even though that may have not been your intention, it sort of became this, path-breaking movie in terms of equal rights. So what level of responsibility do you think our filmmakers hold in terms of what they portray and how they portray it?
See, I feel that filmmakers are not responsible for creating social change. But I feel films are a mirror to society. So I feel like, in fact, I think I probably didn't finish answering that question.
Okay.
No, which kind of connects to this question is that I think it's lovely if a film can create a lot of dialogue and conversation and a lot of thoughts and reflection. So which I feel like a film like Lipstick did do that. And I feel many films, like I feel last year a film like Mulk was so relevant. And
Absolutely.
it really did create that sense of there's something to discuss, something important that needs to be discussed. I think what you write, what you direct, what you create, it exists in a certain context. And so even if you are not aware of it, either you are, I feel like, but your work is saying something. And it is perhaps perpetuating a certain norm in society, or it's or it's like a challenger to the status quo, or it's a bit of both. So I feel like no art really exists outside the context of what's going on in society. And in that sense, I think that it's good if a filmmaker is aware. And I do feel that many times, for instance, I think particularly if you look at popular culture in India, I think it has really strengthened and promoted misogyny and patriarchy.
Sure.
Now, if you talk to the people who have perpetuated that kind of status quo, will say no, it's just excuse everything in the name of commerce or the formula, but I don't know. Like I feel like we should be thinking about what we are putting out there. So in the 1970s, when all those films used rape literally like a tool for titillation,
Yeah.
and every time the hero had to avenge that rape, and how they shot it, and how like they use that term izzat lutli, and how like that concept of honor. So I think like those films are going on perpetuating that thought, and the woman who got raped never survived.
Yeah.
It was like as though like a person who's been raped doesn't deserve to live.
Yeah.
what-
मौत से भी बदतर हो गई, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's how is it worse than dying? Life is
Sure.
precious.
Sure.
So I feel these kind of things, and then of course portraying stalking as love, and then mindlessly promoting item songs. I mean, what are we doing? So I feel like to pretend you don't know what's going on, maybe to begin with, sometimes you just follow the tropes. But at some point, I think as filmmakers, we need to start thinking about what are we making? Are we, however you're telling the story, it doesn't exist out of context. So that's what I'm saying. So I feel like one can be like, oh no, that's not, like, I'm not portraying stalking as love, but you are. And if you don't, you can do that as long as that comment is also there, that this is actually stalking and it's not love. Like I had a major problem with a film like Ranjana, which I felt really glorified stalking, without having enough of a critical comment on that is not like love, that's like obsession. So I guess these kind of conversations are important, and I think this kind of critical self-reflection of what are we making is important.
That was really the seed of why I wrote that open
Well,
letter,
yeah.
on Padmavat.
Yeah.
So I do feel that, you can't pretend, you can't be tone deaf to your context. I know this because of my involvement in Ranjana. And I know that the team of Ranjana had no intention whatsoever of glorifying stalking. While we were shooting Ranjana, Nirbhaya case had happened. I remember this so vividly. We were in Banaras when that had happened. And the film released in June, I think. And in those 6 months, discourse in India had changed because of the Nirbhaya case. In India, the fact that, feminism has led to higher divorce rates. Well, the only difference is that women who are now unhappy in marriages are talking about it. They're saying we're unhappy.